The wind rattled the shop windows like old bones knocking. I was elbow-deep in dough, the flowers sticking to my hands in the quiet morning light. This small city coffee shop, the Hearth, was my world. Isolated, steady, the scent of rising bread my only companion. Then, the door burst open. A woman rushed in, city sharp in her coat, eyes urgent. "I need to use your phone," she said, breath quick. "Car trouble, out of signal." I hesitated, wiping my hands on my apron. As I stepped back, the chain around my neck shifted, the ring catching the light. She saw it. Her glance sharpened, something unspoken flickering. She settled in the corner booth, notebook out. "I'm Simone, writing about this town's old secrets. Mind if I ask a few questions while I wait?" My days had settled into this rhythm long ago. Flour dusted my hands like fine silt from a forgotten river. The scent of rising bread filling the air, a comfort I'd clung to, warm and predictable. The Hearth wasn't much, just a narrow space on Main Street in this fading small city, where locals came for coffee and quiet. I baked early, before dawn, the oven's heat chasing the chill from my bones. No one pried here. I built walls thicker than brick, hidden behind the counter, the ring on its chain tucked safe under my apron. It was my anchor, my secret vow from years back, when love had pulled me under and then let me go. That morning, Simone's arrival cracked it all. She didn't leave after her call. Instead, she pulled out her notebook, pen scratching as she watched me shape loaves. "This town has history," she said, voice low, probing. "Old stories locals whisper about. Ever hear any?" I kept my eyes on the dough, kneading harder. Reluctantly, I nodded. "Some." Her questions drew me in, reluctant as pulling taffy. About the mill that closed decades ago, the families who stayed, and those who vanished. She leaned forward, intensity in her dark eyes, the kind that made the air feel thicker. I noticed her guarded responses mirroring mine. She tucked the ring away quick when it slipped, but the memory lingered in her touch, hesitant on the counter. "Coffee?" I offered, pouring from the pot. Our fingers brushed as I handed it over, warmth cutting through the morning chill like a sudden thaw. Her skin was soft, calloused at the tips from typing, I guessed. Mine rough from dough and heat. That touch lingered, pulling at something deep. My heart quickened at her gaze, steady and searching. It echoed the past, that pull toward someone who saw too much, stirring dust I'd swept away. The shop filled slowly with the usuals. Mrs. Hale for her black coffee, the mechanic grabbing a muffin. Simone stayed through it, notebook filling with my short answers. I deflected, focusing on the next batch, but she pressed gently, her questions weaving through the flowery air. "What about the women who left in 72? The ones the town still talks about in hushed tones?" I froze mid-need. Old gossip. But inside, thoughts clouded. She was too close already. As closing neared, the light slanting gold through the windows, Simone lingered. She packed her notebook slow, eyes on me. "This place feels like it holds stories. Mind if I come back tomorrow? For more?" I wiped the counter, the rag rough in my hand. The shop emptied, silence settling heavy. Her presence had disrupted the quiet, but not unwelcome. Not entirely. I nodded. "If you want." She smiled, small and real, and stepped into the dusk. Alone again, I touched the chain under my apron, the ring cool against my skin. The wind picked up outside, rattling the panes once more. The next day came too soon, the shop's bell jingling sharp against the quiet. Simone returned just after dawn, her coat dusted with the chill from the street. She slid into the same booth, notebook open, but her eyes lingered on me longer this time. I busied myself with the mixer, the hum drowning out the pull in her gaze. "Tell me more about this place," she said, voice easy, like we were old friends. "Why stay in a town that's half empty?" I measured flour, the scoop heavy in my hand. Short answer, it's home. But she leaned in, persistent. Her assignment spilled out over the second cup of coffee. She was here for a story, she said, chasing a thread from city archives. A decades-old queer secret. 2 women who vanished from this town in the early 70s, leaving whispers that never died. Lovers, they said, who couldn't breathe here, who fled under cover of night for a life without eyes on them. The air thickened as she spoke, the words landing like stones in still water. I gripped the counter, knuckles white. One of those women was Clara, my first love. The ring on his chain burned against my chest, a symbol of the unfinished promise we'd made in the dark of her family's barn. She'd slipped it there, silver band etched with our initials, vowing we'd run together. But fear won. She left alone, and I stayed. The ring my silent tether to what I'd lost. Unease built slow, like dough rising in the warmth. Simone shared fragments of her city life between questions. The endless deadlines, the apartments that never felt like hers, the way anonymity there was both shield and cage. Her eyes shadowed, weariness etched in the lines around them, like she'd carried too much for too long. It's exhausting, always moving, she admitted, tracing the rim of her mug. No roots, just stories that slip away. I nodded, but inside, the parallels twisted. Her words echoed my own buried ache, the way I'd anchored here to forget the running. The late bake session stretched the tension. Customers thinned as afternoon faded, leaving us in the shop's back room. The oven's heat pressed close, mirroring the rise between us. Warm, insistent, the air heavy with yeast and unspoken want. I pulled a tray of rolls, steam curling up, and she stepped nearer to watch. Her shoulder brushed mine. Accidental, but electric. "Show me," she said, and I handed her the mitt, our fingers overlapping. The fabric warmed instantly, but it was her nearness that flushed my skin. She laughed softer when flour dusted her sleeve, a sound that cut through the hum of the cooling fan. I deflected, always. Short answers when she asked about the town's old whispers, the pairs who walked too close, the glances that lingered too long. "Folks mind their own," I said, focusing on the dough, punching it down with more force than needed. But Simone pressed gently, her voice like a hand on a locked door. "There's more here. That story from 72. Did it touch families you know?" The ring shifted under my apron, a reminder I couldn't ignore. Clara's face flashed, her laugh in the summer fields, the night she pressed the ring into my palm and whispered, "Wait for me." I hadn't. Life had baked me hard instead. Then the jolt came, sharp as a burnt edge. We sat at the work table, the oven ticking cool behind us. Simone set her pen down, eyes distant. "This work, it leaves you lonely, chasing ghosts, never staying long enough for your own." She looked at me then, raw. "You ever feel that? Like no place fits?" I froze, the knife in my hand still over the dough. Thoughts clouded for just a second. Clara's absence, the years of empty mornings, the ring's weight, a constant echo. My heart thudded, the shop's silence full around us. "Sometimes," I managed, voice rough. Her admission hung there, pulling me closer to the edge. Night fell heavy outside, the streetlights flickering on through the windows. Simone gathered her notebook, pages filled with my reluctant words, her questions about the vanished women now laced with something personal. She paused at the door, coat on. "Thanks for today. Tomorrow?" I nodded, the bell jingling as she left. Alone, the shop emptied of her warmth, I reached under my apron. The ring met my fingers, cool and unyielding in the dark. I held it there, the promise stirring again, unwelcome as the wind against the glass. Simone came back the next morning, just as the first light hit the windows. She slipped in quiet, coat folded over her arm, and took her spot at the work table without a word. I didn't ask. Instead, I handed her the measuring cup for flour, the metal cool in her palm. She nodded, scooping it slow, her movements careful like she was learning a new rhythm. Days blurred after that. She returned daily, the bell's jingle becoming part of the shop's pulse. She'd help with simple tasks, measuring flour, stirring batter, her presence filling the spaces I'd kept empty. The air warmed with her nearness, the scent of her soap mixing with yeast. I watched her hands more than I meant to. Calloused at the tips from endless typing, rough edges where pens had worn the skin. They paralleled my own scars, guarded under layers of flour and time. The faint lines from years of gripping dough, hiding deeper cuts from Clara's leaving. Empathy grew quiet between us, unspoken in the way she'd pass a spoon without looking, or how I'd slide a stool closer when her back ached from hunching over notes. Her fingers brushed mine once, accidental over a bowl, and the shop felt smaller, the silence between us full. The town noticed. Whispers started in the line for coffee. Mrs. Hale's sharp glance at Simone's booth, the mechanic muttering about that city woman sniffing around old dirt. Gossip spread like dampened bread, swelling the unease. "What's she after?" old Mr. Greer asked one afternoon, eyes on me as he paid for his roll. "Trouble, that's what," I defended subtle, wiping the counter harder. "She's just writing, harmless." But inside, a protective pull tightened. Simone didn't deserve their stares, her notebook no weapon. I felt it in my chest, that urge to shield her, like guarding the oven's heat from a draft. We fell into shared silences over tea in the afternoons, when customers thinned. The pot steamed between us, chamomile cutting the sweet edge of baked goods. One day, as rain pattered soft outside, Simone set her cup down. Her voice came low, deliberate. "I had a heartbreak once. Back in the city. Someone who promised forever but faded like morning fog." She stared into the liquid, shadows under her eyes deeper. The air thickened, unsaid parallels hanging heavy. Her loss echoing mine. The way love could vanish without trace. I sipped slow, the warmth spreading, but her words pulled at threads I'd buried. Clara's face flickered, the night she left the ring and slipped away. My hand trembled, passing the sugar. The chain shifted under my apron, the ring slipping visible for a moment, silver glint catching the light. Simone's eyes flicked to it, then away, but the question lingered in her pause. I tucked it back quick, heart thudding against my ribs. Vulnerability cracked open, small but real. The shop's quiet amplifying the shake in my fingers, the way her gaze held without pushing. She didn't ask, just nodded like she understood the weight. Tension escalated that evening. Customers gone, the shop dimmed to oven glow. Simone flipped through her notebook, voice casual but edged. "Found something in the archives today. A clue about those women from 72. An old letter, mentioning the Harlan family name. My family, Eliza Harlan, before I took the shop's name to bury it." The dough in my hand stilled, the air turning thick as rising heat. She looked up, eyes searching. "Any connection there?" "Harlan, rings a bell." I turned to the sink, water rushing cold over my knuckles. Old name, nothing more. But inside, the storm brewed, her words linking past to present, pulling Clara's ghost closer. Outside, clouds gathered dark, wind picking up against the panes. Thunder rumbled distant, mirroring the turmoil churning in me. Simone stayed late, helping stack the last trays as rain lashed the windows. The shop filled with the scent of wet earth, seeping through cracks. Our silences deeper now, laced with what hovered unsaid. She lingered by the door, coat on, rain drumming steady. "This place, it gets under your skin." I nodded, the ring heavy against my chest. The storm held us there, inner and outer colliding, as she stepped into the downpour. The rain eased by morning, leaving the streets slick and the air heavy with damp earth. Simone arrived soaked through, her hair clinging dark to her neck, but she shook it off like it was nothing. She hung her coat by the oven, steam rising slow as the heat pulled the wet from it. I handed her a towel without a word. Our eyes met, and something shifted. The storm had stripped the edges, left us raw. She joined me at the work table, sleeves rolled up. "Let me help," she said. I nodded, passing the dough. We kneaded side by side, shoulders close enough to feel the warmth off her skin. The silence filled with unspoken wants, her arm brushing mine as we pressed into the soft mass, the rhythm sinking like breaths in the dark. Flour dusted her forearms, and I watched the way her muscles flexed, steady under the thin shirt. It pulled at me, that nearness, stirring echoes I'd locked away. Clara's hands had felt like this once, rough and sure in the quiet of night. We worked through the dough in tandem, the table creaking under our weight. Her laugh came soft when a lump resisted, breaking the hush. "Stubborn," she murmured, and I felt it in my chest, the way her presence cracked the isolation I'd baked into these walls. The shop's back room closed around us, the oven's low hum the only sound beyond our breaths. Shoulders touched again, deliberate this time, and neither pulled away. The air thickened with yeast and sweat, her scent cutting through, clean soap and city rain. I wanted to lean in, to let the silence say what words couldn't. But the ring tugged at my neck, a reminder of vows that had fractured long ago. Simone's persistence wore at me like water on stone. Mid-morning, with the first loaves cooling on racks, she pulled an old ledger from the shelf behind the counter. Dust motes danced in the light as she flipped through yellowed pages, her finger tracing faded ink. "These records go back decades," she said, voice low with discovery. Then she stopped. Her breath caught. She turned the book toward me, a photo tucked between entries, a grainy black and white of two young women in the town square, arms linked, smiles wide under summer hats. One was Clara, unmistakable, her hair loose and wild. The other, me, younger, eyes bright with promise we couldn't keep. My stomach dropped. "Where'd you find that?" I asked, voice tight. She closed the ledger slow, eyes on me. "Tucked in the archives yesterday. Harlem family donation. That's you, isn't it?" "With the woman from the 72 story." Fear rose sharp, my heart slamming against my ribs like a door in wind. I denied it quick, turning to the sink, water scalding my hands. "Old photo. Wrong person." But my eyes betrayed me. The weight of years heavy in the tremble of my voice, the way I couldn't meet her gaze. Clara's face stared back from memory. The night she pressed the ring into my palm, whispering we'd escape this town together. She'd gone without me, fear too deep, leaving me to bury the pieces. Simone watched, quiet, but the question hung there, pulling at cracks I'd sealed with dough and silence. The moment stretched, the shop's quiet amplifying the thud in my chest. Flour clung to my cheek from the knead, and Simone reached out without thinking. Her thumb brushed it away, gentle, the touch lingering like withheld breath. Her skin warm against mine, calluses soft from typing scraping light. Time slowed, the oven's heat nothing to the flush rising in me. Her eyes held mine, dark and searching, inches away. "You don't have to hide," she whispered, fingers still on my face. The intimacy cracked something open. Raw, electric. The air between us charged like before a storm. I stepped back, the ring shifting cold under my apron. But her touch burned long after. Word spread fast in this town. The gossip thicker than rising bread. Afternoon brought old Mr. Greer, the town elder, with his weathered face and sharp tongue. He shuffled in after the lunch rush, eyes on Simone in her booth. "Heard you're digging up old dirt," he said to her, voice gravel. I tensed behind the counter, rag twisting in my hands. He leaned close, hat brim low. "Some things stay buried for a reason. Shame from the past, women like that, running off. Town don't need it stirred." His glance flicked to me, knowing. "Warnin' you, miss. Leave it be, or folks'll turn." Simone met his stare, calm. "Just writing facts, sir." He snorted, paid for his coffee, and left with a glare my way. The threat lingered, external now, pressing on the shop's walls. Protective heat rose in me, for her, for the secrets that weren't just mine anymore. I couldn't hold it all evening. As customers thinned, the back room dim with fading light, I set the last tray aside. Simone packed her notes, but her eyes stayed on me. The ring felt heavier, the chain pulling. "That photo," I started, voice rough with old grief. "The ring. It's from her. Clara. We promised each other everything, back when this town choked the air from us." The words scratched out, vague but real, the ache of her leaving, the vow unfinished. Simone stilled, notebook forgotten. What happened? I shook my head, the confession tease hanging unfinished. Grief thick in my throat. As the rain eased outside, pattering to a stop, Simone pushed closer. "Tell me the truth, Eliza. All of it." Her voice edged with need, the kitchen closing in. Heat rose between us, not just from the oven, tension coiling tight, leading to the exchange that would shatter the silence. The kitchen's heat wrapped around us, the oven's pilot light flickering like a held breath. Simone stood inches away, her eyes locked on mine, the ledger still open on the table between us. "Eliza," she said, voice steady but edged. That photo. The Harlan name. It's not coincidence. You're part of it. The women from 72. Clara and you. Her words landed heavy, piecing it together like crumbs into dough. The archives, the letter, the ring. She'd connected the threads I'd spent years fraying. My back pressed against the counter, flour-smeared hands gripping the edge. The shop's back wall felt closer, the air thick with yeast and rain-damp wool from her coat. I tried to deny it one last time. You don't know what you're stirring. But my voice cracked, the weight of years spilling out. The confrontation built fast, her questions pressing like thumbs into softer eyes. Why hide? If it's your story, why bury it? She stepped nearer, the space between us shrinking to nothing. Panic rose, sharp in my throat. Claire's face flashed, her urgent whisper in the barn, the ring sliding onto the chain around my neck. We'd planned it all. Pack light, slip out at midnight, head west where the air didn't judge. But dawn came, and she was gone. A note on my pillow. I can't wait. Forgive me. I'd stayed, the town swallowing me whole. The ring my secret scar. The breakdown hit like a tray dropping. I slid down the counter, knees buckling, sobs pulling from deep. She left me the ring as a vow, said it'd hold us until I was ready. Words tumbled out, rough and unfiltered. The nights we'd stolen in fields, hands tangled under stars, promises whispered against small-town walls that closed in. Clara's family found out. The whispers turning to shouts. Threats of sending her away to fix her. We were young, 19, love fierce but fragile. I was scared, too scared to run. She went alone, to the city, chasing a life without chains. I stayed hidden here, baking away the hurt. Tears streaked my face, salt mixing with flour. The shop blurred, the oven's hum mocking my unraveling. Simone knelt beside me, her hand on my shoulder, steady. She didn't pull away. Instead, empathy softened her face, shadows in her eyes mirroring mine. I get it, she said, voice low. The isolation. In the city, it's different but the same. No place feels like home when you're queer and always watching your step. She shared then, halting at first, her own life, a string of apartments and fleeting touches, women who came and went like assignments. I read about secrets because I live them. Hiding in crowds, never rooting down. No one sees the full you. Not really. Her words wrapped around me, warm against the cold doubt flooding my chest. We'd both carried this. Love tucked away, identities guarded like rising loaves from the draft. I looked up, her face close, rain-streaked hair framing eyes that held no judgment. Our hands found each other over the counter as I rose, shaky. Hers clasped mine, calluses rough against my palm, warmth spreading slow, chasing the chill of confession. It anchored me, that touch, fingers interlacing, steady pulse against mine. The ring chain dangled between us, silver catching the dim light. For the first time, it didn't feel like a weight alone. Her thumb traced my knuckles, gentle, the contact electric in the quiet kitchen. Doubt lingered, but her grip pushed it back, a silent promise amid the steam. Word of Simone's digging spread like wildfire through dry hay. By evening, the shop's bell rang less. Mrs. Hale skipped her coffee, eyes averted through the window. Mr. Greer loitered outside, muttering to passers-by, his warnings turning to open scorn. That reporter's unearthing filth, he told the mechanic, loud enough for me to hear. Gossip swelled, whispers of Harlan's girl and her shame, linking me to Clara's flight, painting us as the town's curse. Customers thinned, faces I knew for years now, crossing the street. The counter stayed empty, the scent of unsold bread turning stale. Isolation crept back, thicker now, threatening the shop's pulse, my livelihood, my shield. Bills piled unspoken, the oven's heat no match for the chill of empty booths. But Simone didn't waver. As dusk fell, she closed her notebook, eyes fierce. I'll write it right. Protect the names, the details that hurt. Focus on the resilience, the love that survived, the way you built this life from pieces. Her vow hung there, simple but solid, shifting the air. No exposure, just truth wrapped gentle, honoring what Clara left and what I'd carried. Hope flickered, small but real, cutting through the backlash's shadow. The shop could endure, maybe even heal, with her words as buffer. Night deepened outside, the rain's patter fading to silence. We moved to the window, sitting side by side on the worn bench, the glass cool against our shoulders. The streetlights blurred in leftover puddles, the town quiet but for distant thunder. Emotions raged on inside, grief for Clara mixing with this new pull toward Simone. The storm passed, but waves still rolling. Her hand rested near mine, not touching now, but close enough to feel the warmth. The ring lay open on my lap, silver glinting, a bridge between past and whatever came next. The window bench held us through the night, our breaths sinking in the quiet. Rain had stopped, but water dripped from the eaves, steady as a pulse. Simone's hand stayed near mine, fingers inches from touch. The ring lay in my palm, silver warmed now from my skin. "No more hiding," I said finally, voice low. The words came reluctant, but sure. We'd share the full story. Clara's flight, the vow, the years I'd carried alone. Joint decision, sealed in that dim light. I slipped the chain back under my apron, but loose now, the ring resting open against my chest. No tuck, no berry. Simone nodded, her eyes soft. "We'll do it right. Your words, my pen." Days blurred after that. Simone worked from the back room, her laptop humming beside the mixer. I'd catch her typing, brow furrowed, the screen's glow lighting her face. One afternoon, as loaves cooled on racks, she read a draft aloud. Her voice filled the space, words honoring Clara. The fierce love in stolen glances, the barn's shadows where promises formed. No names exposed, just the quiet strength of survival. The way I'd baked through grief, turning ache into bread that fed the town. "You built this from pieces," she said, closing the file. "The story's yours, resilient, unbroken." Validation washed over me, warm as fresh pull-apart rolls. Clara's memory lifted, not erased, but woven into something whole. That night, lying in my bed above the shop, sleep evaded. The ceiling creaked with settling wood, but my thoughts drifted to Simone. Her steady presence lingered, the way she'd knelt during my breakdown, hand firm on my shoulder. No pity, just holding space. I pictured her in her rented room across town, sheets tangled, eyes open to the dark. Did she think of me? The curve of my hand in dough, the tremble when the ring showed. Her laugh cutting the shop's hush, her shadowed eyes meeting mine over tea. The pull toward her grew, quiet but insistent, like yeast working slow. Separately, we lay awake, each tracing the other's outline in memory. The air between us charged, even in absence. The town shifted subtle, like dough under gentle press. Gossip still hummed, but cracks formed. Mrs. Hale returned first, hesitant at the counter, eyes flicking to Simone's booth. "Heard you're writing about old times," she said, voice careful. "Fair, I hope." Simone looked up, calm. "Just truths that heal." Mrs. Hale nodded, took her coffee black, lingered longer than usual. Then the mechanic, grabbing a muffin, paused. "That piece you're on. Make sense of things long buried." Cautious approaches, drawn by whispers of Simone's fair hand, no sensational digs. Mr. Greer stayed away, but others edged closer, the shop's bell ringing steadier. Isolation eased, faces familiar again, their glances holding less judgment, more quiet understanding. The ring's weight lightened that week. I felt it shift under my apron, no longer a stone, but a thread, connecting Clara's vow to this new breath. Emotional payoff settled deep, possibilities stirring like embers under ash. Renewal whispered in the oven's heat, in the way flour dusted my hands without hiding hurt. Simone's presence amplified it, her questions now gentle probes into healing, not exposure. The shop felt fuller, the back room a shared space where past and present kneaded together. Hope rose slow, baking into our days. One evening, as I wiped counters, Simone packed her bag deliberate. "City's calling," she said, but her eyes lingered on the window, the street's soft glow. Deadlines, the noise. But this. She trailed off, hand brushing mine over the rag. The touch sparked, warm and sure. The pull here is stronger. Maybe I stay longer. Base here. Chase stories that matter. Her vulnerability cracked open, fear of roots, of settling where eyes knew you. But my steadiness drew her. The shop's rhythm anchoring what the city scattered. I squeezed her hand back. Stay. No rush. Just the hint of more. The small town hold weakening the urban tug. Dawn broke clear the next morning, light spilling gold through the panes. I fired the oven early, the familiar creak of the door pulling me from half sleep. Simone arrived before the bell's first ring. Coat off, sleeves rolled. She joined me at the table, measuring flour without ask. We baked together, shoulders close, the dough yielding under our hands. Steam rose from the first batch, scent filling the air. Yeast and warmth, promise of the day. Between needs, we planned the article's release. Soft launch, she said, voice low. Local paper first, then wider if it feels right. I nodded, the ring glinting as I reached for salt. Her eyes caught it, smile small. The shop hummed alive, our shared work bridging what words couldn't yet say. The article dropped quiet in the local paper a week later. Simone's words filled the pages, careful and true. No names dragged into light, just the story of two women who chose freedom over silence. Their love a thread woven through the town's faded fabric. Resilience in the shadows, she called it, honoring Clara's flight and my quiet hold on the ring. I read it at dawn, the ink fresh on newsprint, the shop's windows fogged from the oven. Her voice echoed in the lines, steady as her hand on mine during the need. Words spread slow at first, like steam rising from a fresh loaf. Conversation sparked in the aisles of the general store, over fences where neighbors lingered. Mrs. Hale came in that afternoon, paper folded under her arm. Saw the piece, she said, eyes meeting mine over the counter. Brings back things. My sister. She left similar, years back. Never talked about it. Her voice dropped, but there was no shame, just a gentle surfacing of secrets long buried. The mechanic nodded as he grabbed his usual, muttering, Town needed this. Clears the air without storm. Whispers turned to nods, the past airing out like linen on a line. No backlash swelled. Instead, quiet understanding rippled, validating the hidden lives we'd all carried. I made the choice that evening, as the last light slanted through the panes. Simone packed her notes, the rented room's keychain jingling in her pocket. The shop smelled of cinnamon twists cooling, sweet against the rain-washed streets outside. Puddles gleamed under street lamps, the air clean after a passing shower. Stay, I said. Simple. My hands on the ledger where the photo still hid. Not just for the story. For this. I gestured to the work table, the oven's glow. Us. Her eyes widened, the city pull evident in the hesitation. But the shop became our shared space then. Tentative future sketched in flower-dusted plans. She'd base her work here, chase smaller stories from the back room, her laptop beside my mixer. No rush to define, just the rhythm of mornings together, her coffee steaming next to my dough. She admitted it later, over tea as rain pattered again. The pot sat between us, chamomile curling warm. Roots scare me, she said, voice low, fingers tracing the mug's edge. City life's easy. Move when it gets tight, no ties to snap. Her eyes shadowed, the weariness from endless roads showing in the tight line of her shoulders. Vulnerability cracked open, raw as the storm's edge. But you, your steadiness, this place, it draws me in, holds without forcing. I nodded, the scent of fresh bread mingling with the damp streets outside, yeasty warmth cutting the clean, earthy wash of rain. It symbolized the fresh start, that blend, past baked into present, no erasure, just renewal rising slow. Allies emerged subtle, like dough yielding under press. Young Lila from the library stopped by, her backpack slung low. Read the article. My aunt was like that. Loved quiet, loved wrong by town eyes. Thanks for letting it breathe. She bought a loaf, lingered to chat with Simone about city archives. Then the florist, Ms. Rivera, with her calloused hands from stems and soil. Saw you two in the piece's shadow. Applies what we hide. Her smile was small, but real, eyes flicking between us. Community acceptance bloomed cautious. A few faces turning kind, their stories surfacing in snippets over counters. No crowds, just quiet nods that eased the shop's pulse, the bell ringing steadier. Hope built in those days, layer by layer. One afternoon, as I shaped scones, Simone reached across the table. Our hands entwined, brief, fingers lacing warm, her pulse steady against mine. No words, just the promise of more, tentative, without rush. The touch lingered after, a spark in the flowery air, pulling us toward whatever came unwritten. External pressures faded, the gossip's edge softening to murmurs that passed like clouds. Focus turned inward, to the shop's hum, our shared silences filling with possibility. As days blended, the rain's rhythm matched our own, steady, renewing, the world outside blurring to let us breathe. Evening settled into us like a soft rise. One night, after the shop's bell fell silent, Simone suggested a walk. The streets gleamed under fading sun, puddles from afternoon rain catching light like scattered coins. We stepped out together, shoulders brushing as we moved down Main. Gravel crunched under our boots, the air cool with silt from the river nearby. Words flowed easier now. No probing questions, just fragments shared. That corner store used to sell the best ribbons, I said, pointing to a shuttered window. She laughed low, her arm linking mine brief. Ribbons for what? Secret notes? The touch warmed through my sleeve, steady, pulling without force. The town felt smaller, less watchful, our steps sinking in the hush. The ring hung open now, chain loose under my collar, no apron to hide it. Past integrated into present strength, Clara's vow no longer a chain but a quiet pulse. I'd touch it mornings, silver warm from sleep, remembering her laugh in the fields, the way she'd knead dough beside me in stolen hours. No grief choked it anymore. Instead, it fueled the shop's rhythm. The loaves shaped firmer, the counter wiped with purpose. Simone noticed, her eyes catching the glint as we walked. It suits you, out in the light. I nodded, the metal cool against my skin in the evening breeze. Growth came in layers, like proofing bread, the weight lifting to let room for this. She'd decided by then. Her rented room traded for a space above the library. Basing here, she said one afternoon, laptop closed beside the mixer. Stories worth chasing don't run from small towns. Her commitment settled gentle, building life alongside mine. No grand declarations, just her coat on the hook by the oven, her notes scattered on the work table. We planned mornings over coffee, her questions turning to us. Where the river bent for picnics, the quiet spots where town eyes didn't reach. Fear of roots faded in her voice, replaced by the pull of steadiness. This feels like ground, she admitted, fingers tracing flour on the table. Mine covered hers, calluses meeting, the contact grounding us both. Bittersweet came in small honors. I'd set aside a shelf in the back room, a simple memorial, no plaque, just Clara's photo from the ledger, framed plain. A loaf of her favorite rye beside it on baking days. Simone helped place it one evening, her hand steady on the nail. She'd like this, she said, voice soft. A place that remembers without ache. Dust moted in the light as we stepped back, the image watching over trays of rising dough. Lost nodded to, not erased, Clara's wild hair, her smile tying past to the warmth we built now. Tears pricked, but they dried quick, the oven's heat chasing them away. We stood at the shop door that night, the walk circling back. Streetlights hummed on, casting gold over the threshold. Future unwritten, but shared. Her hand in mine, loose but sure. The air between us, full of unhurried want. No rush to name it, just the possibility lingering, like yeast in the quiet. Simone's shoulder pressed closer, her breath even. Tomorrow? She asked, eyes dark in the dim. I squeezed her hand, the ring shifting light. Always. The town stretched quiet around us, our steps homeward blending into dusk. The door closed softly behind us, light spilling warm from the windows like an open invitation. The ring caught the glow, silver symbol of vows renewed in quiet ways, bridging what was to what might be. If this pulled at your heart, subscribe for more stories of hidden truths and found connections. Tell me in comments what secret you'd share.